Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Basement Machinist. Today I am going to show you how I go about squaring stock on the lathe without a vertical mill. This piece here, I just have it rough cut right off the bandsaw. I do have two factory edges, and I've checked them with my machinist square, and they are square to each other. So what you want to do is you want to try and have a flat surface up against the face of the four-jaw chuck. And then I'm going to use this long side first because I know that that's the factory edge that's square with this factory edge. So we'll put that in right up against the face of the four-jaw chuck, and we'll clamp down on it. Take your hammer just as you would on a mill. Make sure it's completely seated up against the face of the chuck, and then tighten it down a little bit more. Make sure it's good and seated. Then you just go ahead and make a facing pass across the one side. This should be my last pass. Now we've got the one side that's completely parallel with the other side, but this side is still a little rough. I mean, it is the factory surface, so we're going to flip it around. I'm going to do the other side. And the same thing, tighten it up a little bit. Take your hammer, make sure it's seated up against the face of the chuck. Tighten it down a little bit more. Then we'll make the face cut on the other opposite side. Should be my last pass. And now we've got two sides that are completely parallel. We've got one factory edge on the end. Okay, now we've got two parallel edges and one factory edge. Now we're going to put that factory edge up against the chuck face. And this piece that I'm working with, because it's so narrow, I'm having to set it inside the jawways, which is fine because the jawways should be parallel with the chuck face. And then again, we're just going to snug these down. Take your mallet, seat it up against the face, and then tighten it down. Now we'll take our cuts across the face. Should be my last pass. And now, just like before, now that we've got a clean edge, we're going to work on the factory edge. We'll put that face that we just cut up against the face of the chuck, snug it down, get our mallet, seat it, tighten it down. And now we'll clean up this factory edge. This will be my final pass. And now we've got four sides that are completely square and parallel with each other. Okay, now we've got four sides that are completely square and parallel with each other. Now we're going to work on these larger face areas. Now for this first cut, for the first side, we've got two sides that are saw cut. So we can't put those up against the face because then they won't be parallel with the four sides we just squared up. So what we'll do is we'll rely on the jaws to keep the stock square for us. And the way that I do it is I tighten it up a little bit at a time, and then I just kind of jiggle the stock just a little bit to make sure that these sides are completely flush or completely seated up against the face of the jaws. And then you just tighten it up just a little bit at a time on each one. And now we can make the facing cut across this larger side. This should be my last pass. Okay, now we've got 5 sides that are squared off and parallel with each other. Now we just have the one side left to do. Now this particular stock that I'm working with is shallower than the face of the jaws of the chuck. Ideally, what you would want to do is use a couple parallels. Unfortunately, I do not have any of those, so I'm going to use a tool blank to get it across the face of the chuck. Butt the stock up against that, snug it down. I'm going to take my mallet, make sure it's seated up against that tool blank, and I'll snug it down a little bit more. Then I'll carefully slide the tool blank out. And what I usually like to do here is I'll take my tool blank and I'll just run it on each corner to make sure that I've got equal spacing on all 4 corners. And once I establish that, then I can make my final facing pass. This will be my final pass. And there you have it. Piece of stock that is completely squared from a piece that was sawed cut and only 2 factory edges. Let's take it to the bench and have a look at it. Hey, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a piece that was cut on the bandsaw, and then we faced all 6 sides on the lathe. And if you take this square, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but the pieces are square, or the sides are square rather, with each other. Even the large faces along each side. It's a fairly simple process. Use the same mindset as if you would be using a metal mill, only you're doing it on the lathe in the 4-jaw chuck. Anyway, that'll do it for this video. Thank you for watching Basement Machinist. I'll see you next time.